Hey there, how you doing? Charlie Winters here with horse racing tips and football tips for what day is it? Sunday the 28th of December. Well, Saturday's day, well, the results were mixed, but obviously it was a losing day. In the end we had a 9 or 10 to 1 winner, Bad Habits. I was disappointed with how the day started because the first runner was, I believe it was the Gary and Josh Moore horse. It was the one in green. So basically, it moved into third place. I thought it ran an absolute cracker. I think it was 25s. Then it blundered the last, lost its way a bit, and then got headed towards the finish. So I thought, oh, here we go. And then the second horse was Little Wren. Well, that was travelling absolutely fine. And then I thought, I don't like its position. It's completely boxed in. And next minute it clipped heels, and I'm thinking, what is going off? Because it was absolutely tanking all the way around that I could see. Miss Cynthia ran okay. Then, well, I say it was probably to do with the wind operation. I took a risk because I thought it was like 3 months ago. The horse is still not quite right, but I do believe they'll definitely get it winning. Um, then we had Empirical that ran a decent race at South. Was it Southwell? I think it was Southwell. Wolverhampton. That ran a decent race at Wolverhampton. I think it returned 25s in the end. It did touch 33s. Looks as green as though, but it does looks like it's got a little bit of ability. Clearly wants a bit further, but yeah, it just bumped it along. The leaders went off pretty quick, and then it was one of the very few to actually make quite a bit of ground up because they were well spread out. And yeah, ran an okay race. Came third at 25s. The final horse, Enthused, it actually ran better than its position because it was still travelling well, turning in. I thought, hey up, and then he came extremely wide on it. Mason Patel did. It probably wasn't. That wasn't probably going to be its day. I just thought it was well handicapped and it could run a race, but they held it up last, and I do believe it'll win. Probably not a race quite as strong as that, but it should never have been. I think it touched 125s in the end. Don't get me wrong. People might disagree by saying, yeah, it should have been 125s because it came eighth or whatever it was. But fair point. But there is a race in it, probably even at a decent price. So let's get on to Sunday selections. So I haven't put the football selections in these. They will be in this description by, what time is it now? So when I'm doing this video, it's 9:30. So they will be in this video for 10 o'clock. So the first selection is Beat the Edge at 9 to 1, and it's in the 12.18 at Catterick. So this bet is a £1 each way singles and a 15 pence each way lucky 31. Beat the Edge, like a lot of these horses that I've selected, want this good ground, even possibly a little bit quicker. This horse came second in this race last year, and this horse has been running on slower ground recently, and I think it will much prefer this quicker ground. And to be fair, I can blabber on about all of them, but that's basically what the theme of the day really. Halfway House is the next horse, and that's 14 to 1. It's in the 2.38 at Catterick. What I do believe you also need at Catterick is, I think Catterick, the fences are really tough. It reminds me, and before anybody says anything, it reminds me a bit like Chepstow, like a big galloping track, big fences, and you have to jump them. I think, honestly, I think Catterick is one of the toughest courses there is to jump round, especially for like novice chasers. It can quite easily catch them out. And also, Catterick's a funny course anyway because it's a bit of a roller coaster as well. I won't say it's not like your Cheltenham's where they've got huge hills, but and before anybody like takes this out of context, I think it's more like your kind of Rippons where it's like humps and hollows, and it's a bit of a tricky course. I can remember somebody saying the other day in one of the race previews, only a small race. It was like I can't remember what it was. It was something like Southwell, and I think one of the horses in that particular race at Southwell had made its debut as a 2-year-old at Catterick, and he clearly said it's not a place where people would really want to take the 2-year-olds because yeah, you do learn, but it's not always the best experience because it is a bit of a roller coaster. It's a rapid track. You're going downhill, and then even Nottingham's got a little bit of that. Nottingham's a bit of a tricky course where it looks plain and simple, but there are a few slight undulations. Anyway, we're not at Nottingham. Yeah. So let me get into the third one. So the third one is Treetop Tyson at 15-2 in the 3:13 at Catterick. So this horse, I think it will enjoy this step up in trip. The sire is Soldier of Fortune, and they generally like quicker ground. They also like a decent distance. So, although 2 mile 3.5 isn't the Grand National trip, this horse would want a distance further than 2 mile 3.5. This is the first time it's had that because it's been running over 2 mile recently. I think it will prefer that, and its last run can be ignored to a degree because it was also carrying a penalty for winning. So I think running over a trip that's too short, carrying a penalty. I think it's better than those runs. So I think this extra half a mile. And Jim Neville does actually do okay at Catterick because I think about 2 or 3 years ago, I don't know if people can remember, I actually backed all his horses. And we even had the reverse forecast. And it was making a very nice bet. I think the last one let us down. But I think it made me something like 280 just for, I won't say pennies, but just for a few pound. And I think what it would have been that particular day, I hate to see what the cash out would have been because I know it would have made a few grand anyway if the last one would have come in. But I think the last one led at the last and came third or something like that. But anyway, I'm rabbiting on that. Excuse me. So the next one is Great Ballinboris at 22-1 in the 12:37 at Leicester. So this Great Ballinboris, like all the selections, keep the stakes nice and small because Great Ballinboris was a tip by me last time, and it was a day when we didn't have a very good day, which you could say is like any other day. But Great Ballinboris was travelling really well that day and emptied out very quickly. So it's a relatively quick reappearance, and I don't know if something was wrong that day because it was a big price that day, and I thought, hey, we've got a chance here, and it was keeping it pretty quiet on the internet, and then they turned for home. Can't remember which course it was. I think that might have been Catterick, to be fair. They turned for home, and it found absolutely nothing, and as in like it went from probably travelling the best in the race to zero, and it must have been something. So I think it's worth another try at 22-1. The final selection, right, I'm not claiming this as a superstar. It's a monkey. It's Forest Caper at 13-2 in the 1 o'clock at Southall. The problem is they keep talking about how it's had something like, I think the quote in the Racing Post is fully exposed, well beaten, or sorry, no, not well beaten several times at prices shorter than 5-1. The problem is this horse has still got the best form in the race. There are more progressive horses because originally I did fancy one called Nicator, but it's 9-4 second favourite now, and I can't back it at that. There was 2 horses today actually that I looked at last night. One was Nicator, and I think the other one was in the first race at Catterick, something like Bridge Cap, I think it was, but they're both favourites now. And Bridge Cap was something like, I'm sure it was 6s or 8s, but anyway, can't back it at 9-4. So Forest Caper, anyway, 13-2, best form in the race so far. I'm thinking that it might not have liked the Newcastle track. It's also been messed around. Its best attempt so far has been over a mile. I believe that today's trip is also a mile. But then it got dropped back to 7 furlongs. Then it got dropped back to 6 furlongs at Newcastle. And I think Newcastle's quite a tough course. I think it's supposed to be quite a stiff uphill finish. It's not a Kelso, but I think it's supposed to be quite a tough finish. I think if they hold this horse up at Southall, I think they might have a lot of horse. The jockey might have a lot of horse under it turning for home, and hopefully it can like move away from kickback, maybe even come down the stand side if it's quicker today down the stand side. I don't know, but I just think Forest Caper is getting to a price where it's a bit too big to ignore now because it is the best horse in the race. It's also probably the most dodgiest horse in the race and the most inconsistent horse in the race. But I just think at 13-2, we're getting to a point now where it's too big a price to ignore for a place. So those are the selections for Sunday. I keep wanting to say Monday. Those are the selections for Sunday. So if you've got any comments, please leave them in the description below. I'll try and respond to them if I can, or let me know what you fancy in the comments below. So as I said, the football selections. I think there's only 2 matches. So all I'm going to do, I haven't had the. Oh, sorry. When I mentioned about yesterday, we actually got the treble up as well. We got Arsenal, Liverpool, and Brentford. I can't remember how much it returned, but it was a nice return. Yeah, so that came up. So yeah, if you followed me in, maybe even the football bet might have paid for your day. Probably would have paid for your day, to be fair. But I know a lot of people like to cherry pick, which is fine because half the time you'll cherry pick, hopefully, and miss the losers that I give out. So yeah, so these are the selections. Basically, these horses would appreciate the quicker ground. They are well handicapped. They're not the best horses in the world, but they have got a chance. So I wish you the very best of luck. Charlie Winters, over and out. Cheers, mate.